Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Derek Afasi. I'm the owner of Afasi Financial Group and RetireSharp.com. Today's topic, I want to discuss in full detail your 401k retirement account and how a 401k plan works. If you've been contributing to a 401k, what are different things on how you could increase the size of your 401k account, or kind of look at the conceptual understanding of how a 401k plan works. What are some common mistakes that individuals fall victim to with 401k plans? And then what happens when somebody leaves employment? And then what are some different things that you could supplement in addition to your 401k plan and your 401k money? So I'm going to cover a lot of different things regarding the 401k plan. At any point in time, make sure to take down a pad and pen and basically take down some notes. If there's something that you find interesting and what I'm basically discussing, you want to find out some more information about it, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. I'll make sure that a specialist will be helping you out mornings, nights, weekends, holidays, whatever that case might be. So to fully understand how a 401k plan was implemented, we have to understand how traditional retirement plans used to be created and how what is essentially shifted into this 401k realm. And, back in the day, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, individuals were able to work for a company and they were offered something known as a pension plan. So what a pension plan did was it defined exactly what that individual's benefit was going to be by the time that they hit their retirement years. So an example that I always use is I say my grandfather was an elevator mechanic for the city of New York. So he started working when he was in his 20s, his early 30s, and he had to give X amount of years of service to his employer, which happened to be the city. And then after X amount of years of service, there was a calculation that was made that says, okay, right when you've hit that year, when you're in your 50s, you've hit X amount of years of service, 25, 30 years worth of service, you can now receive retirement income for the rest of your life, or if you want to take a smaller reduced benefit for yours and your spouse's life. So with pension plans, it gave that security, gave that mindset to say, okay, all I have to do is really work for my company, work for this entity, work my butt off, and I know that there's going to be a rainbow at the at the end of those years. There's going to be a set income stream at the end of those years. So when somebody has a pension plan and that's their sole source of retirement income, they typically have pension income and then they also have Social Security income. And between those two combinations of the pension benefit and the Social Security benefit, that income stream should be enough to suffice what their expenses are, where they could live their retirement with confidence. They know that they have their income stream, and that's basically being covered. Well, there was a shift that took place back in 1974, and it was known as ERISA, the implementation of ERISA. So what essentially occurred with this branch of the government was it made individual retirement accounts available, or made retirement accounts available for employees. So rather than the individuals just having the employers create their retirement for them, they were now able to invest their own monies, and hence the implementation of the 401ks came about in 1978. So when 401k plans were first created, and understand, I want to show you this path from start to basically end so that you could have a general idea of what a 401k is and then how you could implement it properly. But from the start of the 401k plans, when they were implemented, you had a bunch of employers that said, okay, well, we're going to get rid of this pension plan because it's such a risk to us. We have to guarantee retirement income streams. We have to invest monies on the back end. That's a large risk to us. We'd rather transfer the risk from the employer directly to the employee. And this is why we've noticed very large growth from the stock market from 1980 through 2000. Was you had individuals, you had baby boomer generation that was hitting the workforce in the 1970s, and instead of being set up with pension plans, they were now funding their own retirements, and they were adding those retirement dollars towards the market, so it gave a nice inflation into the market. So this is a chart that shows the history of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and if you notice, you had steady increases, and then bam, from 1980 through 1999, you had over 1,270% growth into the market. So if you take the previous 90 years from that point and you double it, it still doesn't even hit what occurred during those 19, 20 years worth of growth. Why was that? And based upon what I just explained to you, was in 1978 was the implementation of 401k plans. So therefore, it's equivalent to individuals, or it's equivalent to releasing a fire hose into the stock market of saying, contributions are going into the market, contributions are going into the market. And then we start to see a shift that goes down after that point. Is obviously you have the tech bubble, you have the Great Recession, different things like that. You have volatility, and now you have all these baby boomers that after they've contributed for all those years, they had that good growth. Well, what has to happen? They have to now retire, so they have to liquidate their positions and pull out of the market to live off of full retirement income. So that concept, along with other factors, is why you have market volatility that has especially been more apparent in the last 15, 17 years or so. So, understand really simplistically, like anytime you hear an advisor say define contribution, define benefit plan, and it just go right over your head, just break down those two words. Define benefit is what a pension plan is. Why? Because the company, that employer, is defining exactly what that benefit's going to be. Defined contribution is a 401k plan. Why is that? Because the employer is defining that an employee can contribute. They could actually have a defined contribution. They could contribute into a type of qualified retirement plan, or employer-sponsored qualified retirement plan. So those are the main difference. If you ever heard those words, defined benefit versus defined contribution. So now when you come into contact with a 401k plan, what typically happens is you're working for a company. Now, this has to be a private institution. They're the only ones that could offer 401k related plans. Like if, let's say you're working for the federal government, well, then you're going to have something known as like a thrift savings plan, or you might be working for a municipality, you might be offered a 457 plan, or a nonprofit organization might be giving you a 403b plan. They're all essentially very similar. They're all employer-sponsored qualified retirement plans. So when you're watching this video and you might have one of these other types of plans, understand it's going to be very similar with how the growth works in there. What happens at the back end when you're getting taxed, how contributions work, how matching works, all of those different features. But essentially, what happens is an individual starts working for a company, and they say, okay, this is how much salary you're going to be getting paid, and then these are your employee benefits package. So in that employee benefits package, you might get your health insurance, dental insurance, other ancillary products, life insurance, and then it's going to say, okay, this is your 401k package that you can make contributions to. So let's say if an individual is getting paid $100,000 and they're working for this private institution, and they're saying, okay, you can contribute to a 401k plan, what exactly does that mean? Well, if this person says, I want to contribute 10% of my salary into a 401k plan, well, you have to think of that 401k like a bucket. So you have two different components to this bucket that's going to grow this bucket or reduce this bucket each and every day, each and every year. The first side is contributions. So when someone says, I want to take 10% of my salary and contribute it into a 401k plan, and they make $100,000, well, that's really simple. It says that $10,000 is going to go into that plan as a contribution for that specific year. If, let's say, they're only putting 5% away in contributions, well, then only $5,000. Typically, what happens with this contribution side is, in order to, as an incentive to stay with that company, just like how a pension, there was an incentive to stay with that employer, to stay with that entity, was to say, if you stay with us and you're a loyal employee, you're going to have a nice shiny object. You're going to have a retirement income stream waiting for you on the back end. With 401k plans, because they're defined contribution plans, the employer is going to incentivize the employee to contribute into that plan. So they might say, okay, based upon whatever your salary is, we will match you up to a specific percentage. So like if you see somebody, like if you're working for a company, you're getting like a 3% match as an example, what that tells you is anything that you contribute up to that 3% match would be added in addition from that employer. So if this person's putting away, 10% of their salary, they're throwing in $10,000. Well, the employer is adding in an additional $3,000, and therefore for that year, there's going to be a $13,000 contribution going into this type of bucket. If, let's say, they only put 2% of their monies, well, typically the match is up to, in this case, would be up to 3%. So if this individual is only putting 2% of their salary into the 401k plan, that means that they're adding $2,000, and therefore the match is only going to be up to that specific amount, so they'll only add $2,000. They're not going to give $3,000 if that person's only contributing $2,000, with that $100,000 example. So then in that scenario, if the person only put in 2% of their salary and the match was 2%, then $4,000 is obviously going to be the contribution. So when it comes to the contribution side, where individuals get held up is they think that, okay, I have a 100% match into my 401k plan. So I have prospects that call into the agency and they say, yeah, if I go put away $50,000, my employer is going to match me $50,000, and it doesn't work like that. Basically, if you ever hear like 100% match, what happens is it's 100% up to a specific limit. So it might be 100% up to 5%. It might be 100% up to 3%. So that says that they're going to match you whatever you place up to that specific limit. You might see another thing that says like a 50% match up to 6%. What exactly does that mean? Well, if you have a 50% match up to 6% and you decide you're making $100,000 and let's say you put away 6%, $6,000 into this plan, this says that the employer is going to match you 3%. Or let's say if you only put in, $3,000 and you had these certain terms, well, that's only 3% of your salary. Therefore, they're only going to match you $1,500 into that type of contribution, into that side of the bucket. So understand how that matching works, because a lot of times individuals, they make the mistake and they will max fund a 401k plan. They'll throw $17,000, $18,000 into a plan per year, and they're not truly getting a benefit for it. There's other ways on how you could be more productive with the dollars that you're placing aside. Yes, it's necessary to put a portion into the 401k, but it might not be necessary to put everything into that 401k of what you want to contribute. Because this type of plan is known as a Pretax plan, what happens is all the contributions, if you're making contributions into that 401k plan, it's going to be tax deductible. So what that means is, let's say if you're making $100,000 and you decide to put away $10,000 into that 401k bucket, it's just going to be whatever your contributions are. That doesn't include the match in there. Your adjusted gross income in this really simple hypothetical example, all other things being equal, your adjusted gross income at the end of the year would have been as if you made $90,000, not the $100,000, because you would have thrown $10,000 aside into this type of plan. So when this is pre-tax, understand that the government isn't that nice. Uncle Sam isn't that nice. They're not just going to say, oh yeah, throw your dollars into this qualified retirement plan and it's just going to be rainbows and butterflies. There's a reason for that. And what I mean by that is, for all the dollars that are going into this plan, they're being contributed, and the growth that is occurring within this type of plan, the growth is occurring on a tax-deferred basis. So therefore, when this bucket is going to be nice and large by the time, or projected to be nice and large by the time the individual hits age 59 and a half, 60, 65, when they're looking to retire, any distribution that they're making from this type of account is going to be fully taxable. So it goes along the concept of the farmer. Does the farmer want to have this seed tax, or does he want to have his crop tax? So now that segues into the next conversation, which is, okay, we understand that there's two components with a 401k and how that account grows. The first side is the contributions. The second side is the rate of return. This is the most important aspect with the 401k plan, and this is probably what's overlooked the most out of individuals, out of employees. If you have a rate of return, what exactly does that mean? Well, with a 401k plan, you typically have anywhere on the low end between 5 different fund options to choose from to right around like 25 different funding options to choose from. So typically the funds that are invested in a 401k plan are mutual funds. So what that says is like it's comprised of a mixture of stocks and bonds. It could be, really aggressive, meaning you have a larger portion of stocks than you do bonds, or you could be really conservative, having a larger portion of bonds than stocks. So ultimately, if let's say you're in a moderate portfolio, or you have different allocations that deem you to be moderate, and or let's call it aggressive for this example, and let's say that the stock market that's linked with that aggressive portfolio, the stock market does really well, well then you're going to have a positive rate of return. If let's say you're staying within that aggressive mindset and the market goes down, well then you're going to have a negative rate of return. So it's not so much of, yes, the contributions, you have to add contributions in order to either get that company match, or if you're not offered the match, in order to grow this type of account, to grow that tax deferral. But it's the combination of getting contributions and then getting a positive rate of return that's going to allow that power of compound interest to work in a positive direction. Case in point is in 2001 or 2008, which is more recent, average portfolios lost anywhere between minus 30% to minus 60%, some cases even worse. So you had individuals, you had baby boomers that were contributing. They switched out their plans. They were set up, instead of being set up with pension plans, which there is still pension plans available. That's just right around 10% of individuals are only offered pension plans throughout the nation. So they're very rare today, which used to be the norm, back in the past. So the new norm is obviously the 401k plans, and that was the new norm from 1980 going forward. So when you had individuals that were contributing into those types of plans, and they had their money invested into the market, they had their money invested into the different funding options, well, what did they see? They saw their accounts growing from the contributions they were making, and they saw their accounts growing because the rate of return was so astronomical at that point in time. So they were essentially, their mindset was flawed, thinking, okay, well, the stock market has been doing unbelievable. The stock market can never go down. And then when they say, okay, I want to retire, when I'm, nearing my retirement age, I'm in my 60s, I want to now start taking distributions, I'm just going to leave my money in the market because it's done so well for me. And then they get hit with that minus 30%, 40%, 50% drop. So you have some individuals that had $1 million in their 401k accounts. They say, okay, I want to retire. And then all of a sudden they get drilled with a minus $400,000 loss just because that rate of return came back negative. That's a lifestyle change. Now that makes them go back to the drawing board. What happens if they were pulling out income from that account, and then the account was going down, and then they were also paying fees onto that account? Well, that's a triple negative. Instead of power of compound interest going in a positive direction, that power of compound interest went in a negative direction. Those are very common mistakes that are made with 401k related plans. To make matters worse, they're not only getting taxed on a very low bucket, they've been contributing for all those years. They get hit with that downward market losses, and then anytime they want to take a distribution out, sell their position, utilize those cash monies to live off of for whatever their expenses are that year. Well, all those monies that they're pulling out that they're taking distributions on are fully taxable, because they got the tax deduction every time they were making the contribution. It was growing tax deferred, and therefore by the time they hit retirement age, they're being hit with full taxation. So if we kind of look, there's a term that I always use, I call it reverse dollar cost averaging. So what it says is you're going to have certain fees. You're going to have 401k related fees, you might have advisor fees, you might have mutual fund related fees that are associated with that account. If you experience a downward market loss, let's say you start pulling income from that account, and let's just say that happened the first year that you decided you wanted to retire. Well, let's say if an account was sitting at $1 million and this person was paying $10,000 worth of fees, worth of 401k mutual fund related fees, they got drilled with a 10% downward market loss, so they got hit with a $100,000 loss, and they decided to pull out 50 grand worth of income that year. They would have pulled out $50,000. Their total account value would have dropped down from $1 million that one year all the way down to $840,000. That's a lifestyle change. It's because of that reverse dollar cost averaging effect. And this is why time and time again, baby boomers are outliving their retirement savings, because they do not know how to get a good chokehold on the reverse dollar cost averaging effect. Because then the next year, when you're pulling out, it's not just 5% off of $1 million of income. You need to pull out $50,000 off of $840,000, therefore further compounding the interest against your account. You need that much more of a gain into your account, and to also beat out those fees. So you have just constant panic, and you're pulling from an account that could potentially go down. Then we start to incorporate with expenses. Well, some of that those individuals' expenses in retirement, some are going to be fixed expenses, but majority of it is going to be inflationary type expenses. So this is like purchasing power risk. The gallon of gas, gallon of milk, different things that are going to increase with the pace of inflation. Inflation, rule of thumb, increases between 2 to 4% in a given year. So now there's an invisible negative going against your account, known as that purchasing power risk. Then when you're saying each income payment that you're receiving is going to be fully taxable, well, now you're just further compounding, meaning that now you have to pull out more monies, and you're not allowing your account to have a good enough growth strategy to sustain, how much income you're pulling out with those negatives. So the example I just showed you was, more for that individual that's nearing retirement. What used to happen was an individual in the 1990s, early 2000s, they were able to take their retirement savings and place it into a fixed account, like a bank CD or a treasury bond or a fixed annuity that's paying 7, 8, 9% rates of return. So they could say, okay, I'm going to take my money out of the market, and therefore I'm just going to go into these fixed type accounts. If I have $1 million and I'm getting paid, 6% of interest, well then I could live off of that $60,000 each and every year for however long that contract is. After that contract is expired, then I just purchase a new, CD or a new fixed annuity. And that was, a really attractive route, or that was a really attractive strategy for income. It was known as like a laddering strategy off of bank CDs or fixed annuities to make sure that you're always trying to keep as much cash on hand and then living off of your interest so that you could leave whatever that remaining account value is to your beneficiaries. Well, unfortunately, we've seen a dramatic shift with interest rate environment. So now you have interest rates are at all-time lows, and therefore you're lucky if you're getting 1.5% on the same bank CD that used to pay 10%. Treasury bond sitting at 1%. A fixed annuity sitting at 3% for a 5-year fixed annuity that used to pay 10, 11%, 12%. So the entire ball game has shifted where it's saying, okay, well, you could try to invest into the market, but you really have to know what you're doing there. If you try to utilize fixed accounts, well, then you really have to budget yourself properly, and you still run that risk of a slight reverse dollar cost averaging because that interest credit might not even beat out the pace of inflation. So that's part of the distribution or preservation and distribution phase. But for individuals probably watching this video, they might be still accumulating. They might be, about 20, 15, 10 years out from retirement and saying, okay, well, how do I accumulate my dollars properly? I understand the formula is contributions and rate of return. As long as these two things are positive, my bucket is going to grow larger. And this is where the major flaw in 401k plans come into account. What I mean by that is you have limited funds. You have anywhere between 5 to 25 different funding options depending upon how your employer set up their 401k plan. So therefore, think of them as individual eggs in a basket. How exactly do you choose these options properly? And what happens is time and time again, individuals just guess, or they try to keep chasing returns, and they don't even beat out what the individual stock market benchmark is doing, like an S&P 500 is doing. If they're trying to be super aggressive, time and time again, individuals aren't even beating out this benchmark. Or if they're trying to be super conservative, they're not even beating out bond benchmarks. I'm not just randomly making this up. What I'm referring to, there's a study that comes out. It came out for, I believe, the last 26 years. It's known as the Dalbar study. And it looks at individual investor behavior and individual investor returns compared to what a simple index is doing. And what we notice is time and time again, individuals, they invest based upon emotion. So what typically happens is an individual will start over here, start into the market, or start contributing their money. All of a sudden, their money starts going up. They're fine. Starts going down. They freak out, panic, pull their money out of the market, go more conservative. Then all of a sudden, the market starts going back up. They go a little bit more aggressive. They buy up here. All of a sudden, the market starts going back down. They freak out, panic, pull their money out of the market, then starts going back up. Then they buy up here. So what they're doing is they're buying high and selling low, and they're trying to time the market. What this Dalbar study shows is that market timing just simply doesn't work. So a solution to this is to take a scientific approach and see, okay, what are the different funding options I have? What are the different funds that I could choose? and then look underneath the hood of that. And this is something that we do with our agency is we go and when individuals have different 401k plans, we put together 401k stress tests for them, and we show them mathematically and scientifically, okay, what is it that you're currently invested in? What is the probability of success that, if you stay that course? And then what are some slight tweaks that you could make to make sure that that probability of success is going to be much larger? So it's actually pretty simple, with the different softwares and the different techniques that we show individuals, but it all depends upon what their situation is. So that could be the first solution. If they're just, gung-ho about that 401k plan, well, rather than just tell them, okay, well, 401k might not be the wisest thing ever, if they're very set on that 401k, well, then we want to educate them properly so that they're not falling victim. They're not falling victim to that Dalbar study masses. And when you think about it a little bit further is, what do we have more than ever since the 1990s, since 2000? Because we have media attention. We have media attention all over what's the best thing. We have people jumping around like crazy, breaking, piggy banks on television and all that fun stuff. And at the end of the day, with all of these different tutorials online and different research that individuals could do, they're still time and time again falling victim to this Dalbar study and not even beating out half of whatever that benchmark is doing. So, that's obviously a problem. When you take a more methodical approach, more systematic approach to it, this is what we try to show you guys on an accumulation phase. Now, this is only if your particular situation is for accumulation. That's when we're going to show you accumulation strategy. So that's the first solution, is just making sure that you're optimizing this, a lot better. The second situation, or the second solution, is looking at your individual situation. Where do you work? How much money are you making? What is your point A? What are your retirement goals? When do you want to retire? How much are you looking to contribute for your retirement monies? How much monies do you need in retirement? What are your expenses going to be in retirement? Well, that's point B. So if you're just contributing to a 401k plan, well, that might make mathematical sense, or it might not. If, let's say, you're making $100,000 in that example, and the 401k is giving you a match of 5%, or $5,000, the employer is giving you a match of 5%, $5,000, why would you go and continue to max fund $18,000 into a 401k plan where you could at least benefit from the match, benefit for that contribution side, maximize out what that rate of return side is, because it could only be so maximized. You're only going to be between 5 to 25 different funds in your 401k plan. You don't have thousands of different funds available. And then what are different areas? So if, let's say in this scenario, we want to at least receive what the match is, because the match is free money. That's the incentive to stay with the company. That's the incentive to invest into those types of plans. That makes sense. That makes mathematical sense. You can't say that. I mean, you're literally getting 100% of your contribution by putting whatever that match is. A simple strategy would be, okay, well, place that match, meet that match. But if you're used to putting away $18,000, well, maybe throw the $13,000 other dollars into a different area. Something that hones in on a better route on taxes, maybe something that will be tax-free. Something that could still beat out that inflationary rate, or something that could at least mimic or give you a better rate of return than what your 401k is. Something that you have a better strategy against downward market losses, and then most importantly, your expenses. If you're going and you're investing dollars to a 401k, and let's say you don't have a match, and you're paying 2.5% in expenses, but yet there's other options available on an individual side that you don't have to pay that high, and especially over the long haul, is really thousands and thousands of less dollars having to pay and go into those types of products, into those expenses, well, then that's creating a better plan. That's creating a better accumulation strategy, so that when you get to that point B, then you could factor in the preservation and distribution plan properly. Now, for individuals watching this video and they say, well, yeah, that makes sense. I have experienced those ups, those downs in my 401k plan. I've been kind of shooting from the hip since inception, but I also left a couple of employers. I have old 401k plans, but I just kind of left it there. Well, understand, when you leave an employer, or you're working for a new company, or whatever that case might be, you have access to take those old 401k monies and roll them over into something known as traditional individual retirement accounts. The reason why that's beneficial to do so is the 401k plans typically have that 5 to 25 different eggs in your basket to choose from. When you go and you do a rollover into an IRA, you're not getting taxed when you roll the money over. You'd get taxed if you took all that money out and threw it into your checking account. That's a large mistake that individuals, surprisingly do make. But what this does is now you have 2,000, 3,000 different eggs to choose from. So now it could be more customized on your overall plan. So this is something that's a really simple fix because, we could basically utilize a scientific approach or give recommendations or educate you on how you could do that by yourself on your own to make sure that you're investing your dollars the best way with that IRA account. So, that's part of the accumulation phase. If you have old 401k retirement accounts, that's really good because you could utilize those old monies to go and roll them into specifically designed IRA contracts. If you're doing your accumulation phase, well, rather than going blind into it, you want to make sure that you're taking a methodical approach, and this is what we try to help you guys out with. So to reiterate on accumulation phase, there's a few different solutions. First might be to just max fund the 401k and try to scientifically figure out what is the best approach, what could give you the best rate of return. Making sure that you're eliminating the most amount of risk, avoiding those downward losses where they could impact you the most. The second option is to utilize a blending strategy where you put in the necessary amount. We calculate what the necessary amount would be to contribute to the 401k, and then also we look at other avenues on an individual basis to make sure that you have accumulation, you're having the proper match, you're having proper strategies, all of that. And then the third solution is just like option number 2, except for if you have old 401k monies, you can go and roll them into specifically designed IRA contracts that will basically mesh with each other in conjunction with the accumulation strategy. So that right when you get to that point B, now you have all these little micro buckets sitting there. You have all these different levers to be pulled to make sure that you have that full retirement success or that full retirement confidence at that later date and time. The second side of the coin is the distribution, or should I say the preservation and distribution phase. So what happens when somebody was, adding up all those monies to their 401k and now they're reviewing this video and they're looking to start taking, distributions from their account or at least preserving what their retirement monies are? Well, this is where you have to have a more systematic plan, and this is where you really cannot have any sort of mistakes because you don't have that longevity to make up what those mistakes are. So it goes off of, preservation-wise, have to be more conservative. Distribution-wise, you have to make sure those are maximized and all those different components. And the easiest way that I could explain this is utilizing 3 main strategies. If all 3 of these strategies are accomplished, well, then you're going to accomplish pure retirement confidence. The first strategy is making sure that you have ample amount of income sources. The second strategy is making sure that you have ample amount of emergency funds available and during those retirement years. And then the third aspect is making sure that you have some sort of inflationary protection in play. So let's say if I'm dealing with an individual that's currently age 60, and let's say that she wants to retire at age 65. Let's say she's single, wants to age 60, wants to retire at age 65, and she says, okay, well, I'm going to be working for the next 5 years. I have 401k monies that I'm eligible to roll over into individual retirement accounts, sitting at $500,000. So also at age 65, we understand that this lady is going to be receiving $30,000 of Social Security income. And then after doing her budgeting analysis, we know that at age 65, her current expenses are going to be $50,000. Out of these $50,000 expenses, we're going to have half of those money, $25,000, which are going to be fixed, and then $25,000, which are going to be inflationary-based expenses. So when we're looking at this, what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that her bucket, the money that she could work with, is $500,000. She's eligible to roll them over into specifically designed IRA contracts, and she doesn't need to start taking distributions until age 65. So her income sources at age 65, we understand $30,000 of it is going to be Social Security income. At age 65, she's going to have a gap of $20,000. So this is where you could leverage like an IRA hybrid annuity, meaning an IRA annuity with an income rider, so she's not losing control. And what we do is we calculate for this individual, depending upon what her state is, depending upon her situation. For a female age 60 looking to defer income for 5 years, we would find out what the best possible solution would be to produce her that $20,000. So maybe out of the 500 grand, it's going to cost $200,000 to go into an IRA annuity with income rider, a hybrid annuity that's safe, and that's going to produce $20,000. And this is just a hypothetical example. But what this tells us is if we go and we leverage out of that $500,000, we had to use $200,000 into IRA number 1 to accomplish that income goal. So therefore, walking into age 65, her need is $50,000. Her expenses are $50,000, and her income is going to be $50,000. Check. Everything looks good. Step number 2 is rule of thumb. An individual wants to have anywhere between 6 to 12 months of expenses in emergency funds. So if she has $50,000 of expenses each year, maybe we leave $50,000, roll that over into an IRA money market account. Something that's not going to give her growth, but it's also not going to make her lose anything. Something that she could pull out from at the drop of a hat. She could pull monies out in case she ever came to that oh my gosh moment. You know, a tree comes, falls to her house. She has a medical ailment, something that she has to pay for. This tells us that out of this $500,000, well, IRA number 1, $200,000 went into the IRA annuity, $50,000 hypothetically went into the IRA money market account, and now there's $250,000 to solve this inflationary need. She could either go and leverage that accumulation strategy by saying, okay, roll it over into an IRA and make sure that it has a better rate of return with a lot less risk, have certain mechanisms on there, and just kind of play that more investment related type growth strategy to make sure that it's at least sufficing that each year past age 65, if let's say at age 67 her expenses grow to $52,000, at age 70 it grows to $54,000, well now she has an extra bucket of money that's growing that she could pull off of for interest each and every year. So what this does is it takes a scenario that she originally said, okay, well, I hope that I'm not going to be making any mistakes. This is essentially my situation. What we're able to do is break down and create an exact puzzle piece for her with 3 different lanes that could properly allow her to have pure liquid cash off of this account that's sitting in the IRA. She could have pure liquid cash off the account that's sitting in the IRA money market account. And then she also has flexible liquidity regarding the IRA annuity because we're utilizing an annuity with an income rider. And that income rider could produce her $20,000 at age 65. What's really important to note is even if we go and we do those different rollovers into individual IRAs, which in that scenario just showed 3 IRAs, that inflationary protection could also be met with different annuity laddering strategies, which just provides more lifetime income streams, and they basically step up at different intervals, so you're calculating it out more specifically. But ultimately, when she does that move at age 60, well, now she could still contribute to her 401k plan for 5 years because she's not going to retire until she's currently age 60. She doesn't want to retire until she's age 65. So now this could go off of that accumulation process to make sure that she's picking on a scientific basis, picking the best 401k related options, available to her, making sure that she's getting a good rate of return strategy, making sure that we're looking at different analysis and putting different mechanisms to prevent those downward markets from happening, and just giving her that safety and consistency while eliminating large drawdowns, large downward market losses, so that at age 65 she has an additional 401k bucket that she could leverage on top of everything else. So what we're doing is we're basically taking away that worry, taking away that potential downward market, that reverse dollar cost averaging effect of fees, downward market losses, pulling out income from those accounts, inflationary risk, purchasing power risk, taxes, all those different things. We could actually have all the strategies going in a positive direction rather than compound interest in a negative direction. So I hope that everything I reviewed in this video makes a lot of sense. At any point in time you found it valuable, you found it interesting, feel free to give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. We are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You give us a call mornings, nights, weekends, holidays, whatever the case may be. Now, a better, more efficient process that you guys could do that we have on our website is through our digital calendar, where you could set it up or you could have a more concrete appointment, specifically with a specialist. So the name of our website is retiresharp.com or afasifinancial.com. They're both going to bring you to the same website. And what you're going to notice is on the right-hand side, you're going to have a little icon that's going to pop up that says Book Your Strategy Session. So you can schedule your appointment, you can look at our digital calendar, and you can make sure that it works for whatever your schedule is, depending upon if morning works better, middle of the day, or afternoon, whatever works more valuable for that. And then when you put your little note, say, okay, I want to talk to a 401k specialist, whatever that case might be, we can make sure that we have the exact strategy specialist available to take the phone call. One of the things that I want you guys to realize is I also take a lot of these phone calls. So if you're calling into the agency, if you're you wanted to speak with a specialist, there's many times you're going to get me on the phone as well. So don't think that I'm not the one. I'm just basically create these videos. I do a lot of these plans myself, and would love to have a phone call with you directly. What we try to do differently is educate individuals. We want them being comfortable with processes and making sure that everything makes logical and mathematical sense. So that's why we utilize different systems. We have something in particular known as our RPS system, our Retire Sharp Planning System, to make sure that we're always giving the best possible solution that we're able to. If you found value in this video, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you can have access to the most updated videos, and we look forward to taking your call. Thanks so much.